So it is recording. Thank you very much, Bala. I totally forgot to mention that or get that started. So I'll go back to sharing. Thank you. Okay, so in terms of the session that we're going to be talking about today, it's learning to understand what you need to do to set objectives and planning for your training session, understanding the role of speaker versus trainer, and particularly the things that a trainer does that a speaker might not be doing, and encouraging participation of those who are listening, those who are attending the training session. And then specifically, we'll talk about what we can do to make a Zoom session a little more exciting and interesting for people. Okay. All right. So setting the objectives and planning. First of all, think about what it is that you want your attendees to know. So for example, if you are going to be training, let's say I'm going to ask Steve. Is Steve Cohen on? Steve, you can unmute yourself if you are.
I am. I'm on.
Steve, I understand that you're going to be one of our trainers for the treasurer role.
Yes.
What is it that you think if they walk away from your session, what is it that you think, boy, if they had this, they're going to start the year right?
Well, if they realize where they need to start, how to use the bank accounts, how to set up their payments, when their payments are due, those are the things that are important.
Okay. So in your training session, make sure that you have a way that they can get that information and understand what it is that they need to do. If it means leaving them with a something that a link that they can go to, or maybe at least as a minimum, have them repeat back to you what you think that they should know. So what is initially, before you start doing anything, what do you want people to know before the training session? And you recall that when we started off the session, I set out the objectives that we're trying to do for this session. So same thing for you. You'll want to do that. What is it that you want them to do? And that means, what do you want them to do before, during, and after the training session? So for example, when they come into the training session for you, is there any prep work that they should do? Anybody have a suggestion about maybe what we might want to recommend to people? Unmute if you want, or raise your hand. I don't have somebody here to watch the room for me, so.
I think, yes, one of the things that I'm going to be doing with my own clubs is the leadership guide that's out in international. It talks about all the different roles, different offices, talks about the Distinguished Club Plan, and those type of things. I want them to be familiar with that before the TLI.
Okay, good. Thanks, Tom. And that's a really good one. I would recommend maybe for all of you who are training club officer roles that and maybe this is something we'll do universally. Maybe before we're done, we can take a little poll here and see if you all agree that maybe when people are signing up for their role, that we recommend to them that they go out and get that club officer handbook, because that really is, quote, their Bible for the coming year. And I will mention something about that, and that is that club officer handbook that's on the TI website right now is, I think it's dated in September of last year, maybe it's November, I forget. But it currently does not have the latest Pathways program only for next year. So it has a combination of Pathways and the traditional program. So it has not been updated yet. But we'll talk more in some other things in a little bit. But so that's something that might be recommendation, certainly club officer handbook before they come in. And then specifically what do we want them to do during the training session? And then obviously after. What is it that they should be doing when they leave that training session? And equally important would be if I can figure out how to make this thing go forward. If for some reason, there we go. When should they do it? So there may be some things that they need to do immediately after your training session. Here we are, will be the end of June. July 1, the new program year starts. What is it that they should be doing? So for example, the president's role. who are president trainers? Bonnie Tippy, I'm going to call on you. What would you say that the president should be doing July 1, the new president coming in? You can unmute yourself.
I think that one of the first things that they should be doing is gathering their team and having an officers meeting, start reviewing the Distinguished Club Program brochure booklet, as well as the Club Success Plan. Think about dividing up who's going to be doing what parts of it, be responsible for gathering information and bringing back to the team as a whole. I think that that's one of the things that the presidents should be doing as soon as they hit the ground running, because if you don't have a club success plan, you don't have the DCP going in your head, you don't work as a team, your whole year's you're gonna be playing catch up for the rest of the year.
Thank you very much. That's really spot on. And in fact, I will mention, since you brought it up, the Club Success Plan Distinguished Club Program booklet has just recently been updated. If you have an old version, I would recommend you go out to the website and download it. Actually, that one has been updated so that what's in the Club Success Plan is focused strictly on pathways. It does not have the traditional program in there. So if you haven't downloaded it lately, I would recommend you go out and get that. And certainly we'd want to recommend that for anybody who's a club officer, but surely for the club president. And so what resources would you need? Now, I've included in here things like projector, computer, flip chart, handouts. Obviously, some of that is appropriate for a face-to-face session, not so much for Zoom specific. And we're going to talk more about Zoom specific things that you may want to look at for resources, but we certainly need to have our computers working properly. I would highly recommend, if you try to do a training session, doing it on a phone, if you're the presenter, is really going to be a challenge, I think. If you have a laptop, great. If you have a regular standalone computer, that's even good as well. Either one of those, I think, will be the best solutions for you. Any feedback or comments on that? Okay.
Dick, one thing about pre-work, I think that is a great idea. The club officer handbook, they don't send that anymore, right? The printed versions.
It's only available online. That's correct.
Yeah. And then online under Leadership Central, there is a club officer tools. And then there is a club officer role, one sheet per role, giving a summary of that role from the competencies that they develop. So that could be one of the pre-work, ask them to come prepared, to have good understanding of the role. Then, then the session can be better utilized.
Sure. Hang on a second here. I'm going to see.
And Bala, I actually have all those saved on my computer. I'm happy to send those if needed.
Yeah, it's a one sheet. I think they introduced it recently. The one pages for each role, quickly summarizing the major responsibilities and competencies that each role will develop.
Yep.
And they even list one for the past president.
Yeah, so you really, if you go out to the Toastmasters website, can you all see my screen? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Go to the Toastmasters website.
We can only see the presentation, not.
Well, that's no good.
Yep.
Let's try that again.
You need to do a new share.
Yeah.
I'll just share my whole screen. Now you can probably see it.
Hello. Yep.
So if you go out to the resources and go to resource library and just type in there, well, actually you can see it right here, club officer tools. I think that's what you were talking about. And there's all kinds of tools. For some reason,
Scroll down.
I got to hit the search feature. There we go.
There you go.
It'd be nice if they let you pick the language you want to use on the website and not show you the other stuff if you did.
Come on, Dan. That's a lot.
And Dick, there is also a direct link from Leadership Central. If you click on Leadership Central, there's a club officer. That's a good club officer tools. Yeah,
right there. Yep.
That's better organized.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Good point. Yeah, there you go. And so there's a club leadership handbook. And again, that's not the latest. It's not updated, but it is a fountain of knowledge for certainly the
It's March
individuals.
2019, but that's the newest one that's out there right now. I put the,
Yeah, it's old. It's not up to date in terms of but it's got all the roles pretty much identified. And by the way, while we're on, I'll mention it now. In there, I would recommend for each of you who are training a different club officer role, take a look at it, because there's actually some cute little exercises that you could probably set up online. I'll just leave you with that thought, and we'll get to that a little bit later. Okay, let me switch back to my presentation here. Okay, am I back to the presentation?
Yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
perfect. Thank you. So what do you want them to know? When do you want them to know it? What should they be doing before and after and during, and then the resources? So we've talked about all of those things for the time being. We'll move on to the speaker versus trainer role. And this is really important for you to understand. This is kind of the crux of being a trainer. It's different from just being a speaker only. And the reason being is that engagement of your participants is critical. And so as a speaker, you might be just informing or persuading or entertaining somebody, but for the role of a trainer, you want participation, because their participation is going to modify and change, hopefully, their behavior, what they're going to do after they leave your training session. Speakers, generally, it's a one-way communication, although a good speaker would want to engage the audience too. But for sure, as a trainer, your goal is to have some kind of two-way communication. That does two things. Number one, it helps them be more engaged and they internalize things better. But number two, it gives you a better feel for whether they really know or have learned what it is that you're presenting to them. A speaker would tend to want to tell people what it is that they want them to know. Ideally, if you were a trainer and you started a training session, you might want to gauge where people are at. It's not going to be very easy to do in a Zoom session. So that might not be something you'd be able to do very well. However, the tool side of it in a speaker, the humor, stories, vocabulary, you'll certainly want to have any of that. If you have a personal story about your role that you're training, use that. You may also look at other things like questions and answers and exercises, case studies. Like, for example, maybe some of those things that are in that club officer handbook, I should say. Maybe those are things that you might want to use as tools in your session to get the people engaged in your program. Discussions, a little bit more challenging. If you have a room full of people, like, for example, if you had 100 people in the room and you try to open up for discussion, things could get chaotic and hurry. But if you're a president trainer maybe, and you have, say, a dozen people, maybe the discussion might work for you. You really have to kind of gauge that and see whether that will be a possibility. Any comments or questions on that?
If we are in a breakout room, how can we break out into discussion groups within that breakout room, or isn't it doable from a breakout room?
Yeah, we're trying to avoid doing breakouts. In fact, I don't know if you're aware, maybe you're not aware, but I'll say it now. Each individual room for the training will be what's the word? I'm drawing a blank.
a Zoom session.
It's a Zoom session. It's a Zoom account. Thank you. That's the word I'm looking for, account. So we're going to have 7 different Zoom accounts. The first one, the overall general session, and where we have the club quality session, that will be in one account. And then everybody will go to their individual room that they need to go to. And in that room is where they'll stay. We're not going to try to break people out into breakouts within those rooms. It'll just be too chaotic, and we have to have 7 different sergeant-at-arms to handle each of those. If your sergeant-at-arms is comfortable with doing it in your room, then maybe you could consider it. And later on, I'll talk about, we're going to have a session with the trainers and the sergeant-at-arms in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from yesterday, I think it is, Saturday.
20th.
And the 20th, yeah. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But Marianne, in terms of actually having breakouts from the training session themselves, that's not currently in the plan. But if you can make it work for your particular session, then all the power to you. Right now, that's not in the plan. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Dick.
You're welcome. So engaging the participants is really one of the things that you really want to focus on. And how are we going to do that? That's going to be the challenge. As I mentioned, engaging the participants is important because adults learn best by participating. And, you know, the numbers might be 25-75, it might be 20-80, it might be 50-50, but either way, participation is a key element in any session that you'll be doing training in. So how do we do that? Well, we talked about a little bit of that already, pre-work, manuals, using the club leadership manual, maybe even directing people to the TI website so that they can see some of the things that are out there if they haven't already been out there before. If you look at the club leadership manual, there are, I wouldn't necessarily call, I guess they're sort of case studies or that kind of a thing, but let me see if I can share that with you here real quick.
Well, the individual training sessions that they download has case studies in it too.
Yeah, yeah. But what I'm driving at it real simply, if you want to reference the club leadership manual. So for example, vice president membership. And let's see if I can blow this up a little bit. They have a couple of scenarios there. So for example, the vice president membership, if your club has experienced a rapid turnover, members sign up, stay for a few weeks, and then move on. That might be something you could present to people that have them ask. You ask them, what would you do in a case like that if you were training in the vice president membership role? Now, if they have already gone in and studied this manual ahead of time, they already have the answers, and that's okay. The discussion will take place, and that will be the thing that will be beneficial for them and for you as a trainer. So let me go back to the PowerPoint here. Okay, so pre-work, case studies, manuals. Certainly the TI website is as we saw, it has a fountain of knowledge in it. Asking open-ended questions. And we're going to talk a little bit in a few minutes about using the polls. And I'm not going to cover that right now, but when we get into the Zoom features. But asking open-ended questions, like what I've already done. You notice the beginning of the session, what did we do? We started talking about, obviously I screwed up and I asked Dan to do it, but how do we use the chat feature? And Dan really struggled with it, and that's okay. When we have issues like that, it's okay, by the way, if things don't quite go the way you planned. Don't worry about it. We have opportunities to make things better as we go. Okay, so asking open-ended questions. Having discussions, we were already doing that. If you can do that in your session, again, this is a real key here is not to let the discussions diverge and go to a direction that you don't want them to go. If they start doing that, you got to make sure you bring it back to the point at hand. Role plays. Maybe you might want to try a role play. So for example, Gary Vaughn, I understand you're one of the people who'll be training in VP membership.
Yes.
You could maybe do a role play. For example, who's your assistant there? Tom Gambucci. If he and you maybe could do a role play of, for example, a guest coming into a meeting. Maybe you could be the guest and he could be the sergeant at arms. How would that work in terms of introducing the guests or welcoming the guests and doing a role play there? So, think about that. If that might be something you'd want to do. A role play doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, the less complicated it is, the better, because if it's too complicated, the participants won't necessarily understand it. But there's opportunities. Think about, for your given role that you're going to be training in, think about what it is that you could do. Marianne, even in Pathways, there might be opportunities to do role plays for somebody who's brand new to Pathways. How do we get them to understand? I think you're doing the beginner session, Marianne, is that right?
Lots of opportunities there for sure, Dick.
Yeah. So really, and they could even maybe help you by trying to walk through it themselves or without putting them too much on the spot. But yeah, role plays are certainly exercises. We talked about a few of those already. Now let's move in to some specifics about what we can do in Zoom that will help engage the audience. We've already covered a couple of them. One of them was the chat feature. In your specific Zoom session, our goal, and I don't know, Dan, you might be able to tell me whether we have them or not. Our goal is to have a sergeant at arms who will be well-versed in Zoom to monitor the chat feature. You, as the trainer, you can decide how you want participation. So for example, you could leave it open, just like what we're doing now, and let people jump in. If you feel like that's getting too complicated, you say, look, if you really want to talk, use the chat feature, let us know what your question is, and then we can continue the discussion with you opening up your unmuting and talking. That's one way to do it. The chat feature, we already kind of explained it, but if we have somebody monitoring the chat feature, one option would be that the sergeant at arms monitors the chat feature and then actually says the questions to you as the trainer. So I know we did that in, I think, Andrea, your session, didn't we do that in your training session?
Yep.
Yeah. And tell us, how did that work out?
Worked out great. Because they weren't asking questions right in the middle of the session, and you could just give your piece and then pause, take a break, and then let the SAA or the meeting manager read you the questions, then have a discussion, then stop the discussion, and then go back. So that way you're not constantly interrupted with questions.
Okay. And again, that's really a function of the individual trainer. How do you want to conduct the session? You have 55 minutes to do whatever it is you're going to do. And if you're trying to pack a lot of stuff into a short period of time, there may be limiting the interaction. We don't want to totally cut it out. We have to have some interaction. As I said, we want to engage the audience. How do you do that? That's the real key. And,
I have a question.
Andrea, yeah, go ahead, Andrea. I was going to add something, but go ahead.
Oh, sorry. This question is actually, I think, more for Dan, but are we going to know ahead of time who our SAA is?
I hope so. We're supposed to practice with them soon.
Yes. Okay.
Wendy had got a few of them together, and Chris, I think, is looking for the rest of them.
Okay. Sorry, just wanted to know.
That's all right.
Yeah,
Wendy got a bunch of them, and then thought maybe Chris would have some people he wanted to work with because he's in charge of that. So we're going to talk about that at 4 o'clock, but he'll let us know then if we've got them all.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, the goal is to have an SAA for each room, and that SAA will be well versed enough in Zoom to be able to help you out. And by the way, Andrea, I have to applaud Andrea. Yeah, Jerry, just one second. Let me finish this thought because I'll forget it. I know I will. I just wanted to mention that Andrea actually set up her presentation to be in unique, I think it was 3 unique sessions or sections of her session, so that at the end of that section, she was then answering questions related to that section that she was, so it really worked well. I thought it flowed very nicely, Andrea. I don't know if that was intended how you did it, but it worked out really well. Jerry, go ahead. Jerry.
I just think, Dick, to that point, we want to set kind of the rules of participation in the beginning, how you're going to handle questions, how you're going to handle the chat, because this way you lead the participants, the people that are in the audience, knowing if, as Andrea said, if you're going to have the SAA kind of handle the chat feature or polling or whatever it might be, this way the audience understands in the beginning how you're going to deal with it. Are you going to take questions in the beginning? You're going to take it in the middle? You're going to hold it to the end? So it's just important, I think, to set that up in the beginning.
Yeah, great point, Jerry. In fact, I'm not sure what's wrong with your sound, Jerry, but it's really choppy, but I think I understood most of what you said. But
sorry.
Go ahead, Andrea.
Well, it might also be beneficial for those of us who are doing the presenting to know how to mute everybody.
You won't need to worry about that. Your sergeant at arms can take care of that.
Oh, sergeant at arms. Okay.
Because
that way, if they do,
I want you guys. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, that way, if they do try to ask something in the middle, they won't be able to because they're muted, and hopefully they won't figure out how to unmute. But that way, we can still keep a flow and have the SAA.
Yeah. Once the SAA mutes people, they can't unmute until they're allowed to unmute. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's a great point. The sergeant at arms, we're trying not to put the burden of how to handle all that on you. The sergeant at arms will take care of muting and unmuting people as needed. But Jerry, that's a great point. In fact, one of the goals, I think in the general session, if I remember right, Wendy will hopefully be able to cover a little bit of that in her opening remarks to tell people, look, here's the features that we're going to have, and then it's going to be up to individual sessions how they want to handle the features that are in Zoom for engagement and participation. Wendy, have I got that right? Is that part of what you're going to be talking about?
Yes, just, you know, the general rules of working within the Zoom framework as a participant during the training sessions that you will attend. Yes, and then each individual sergeant at arms or speaker, as it is, can give the particulars of that session.
Okay, great. Thank you, Wendy. Okay, so, excuse me, the chat feature is certainly one that probably is most useful for you. It does eliminate the possibility of people jumping in and interrupting you. I don't mind it in this session. I think we'll have enough time, but so I've left the door open for people to jump in anytime they want. But for your session, you may want to really keep that minimized in terms of people jumping in.
Nick, I have a question on chat. Will the sergeant at arms be able to be the only one seeing the chat? Because sometimes if people are sharing their chats, it comes up on the screen that everybody can see, and that can be distracting from your presentation. So if chat only goes to the sergeant at arms, is that something that's being considered?
Yes, we are looking at that and talking with Chris. We do want to have the chat feature open, but we want to minimize people talking back and forth. Like if during this session, you know, Wendy's thinking, boy, that Dick is he's really doing a terrible job, and she tries to message that to Jerry. That's fine if she wants to do it, but if she accidentally sends it to everybody, then everybody's distracted and everybody jumps in on that, and they, you know, yeah, we're gonna take a look at that. We haven't quite finalized it. And Wendy, maybe you have something more on that than I have, but I don't think it's been finalized exactly how we're going to, quote, control the chat.
I think we're all still learning, and by our next session, we'll have it down.
Great, thanks, Wendy. Now there is another feature in Zoom which I can't demonstrate because as the presenter, I can't raise my hand to speak. That would be like trying to call myself on the phone. So if somebody wants to give that a shot, you should have, Dan Kreiber's raised his hand. 3 participants raised their hand. Looks like everybody figured out how to raise their hand. Could you maybe express how you did that? Who raised that?
You need to have the participant window open, I believe. At least I have it open. I don't.
Yeah, right.
Wired down to bottom. There's a raise hand, yes, no, go slower, go faster, and some other options that says more if you go get them over there. So
can you see it on my screen? I don't have the raised hand in mine because I'm a presenter.
you would. I don't know if you'd ever.
No,
that's because you don't have a participant window open, do you?
Yeah, can you still see my screen?
Yeah, but I don't see a participant window. That's participant window.
This is the participant window here.
No, this is your desktop you're sharing.
Hang on, let me unshare then. I thought I was sharing everything. Let's go back again.
I think it's because it's part of the Zoom.
Okay, yeah, you're right. You're right.
But you can raise your hand by clicking on the raised hand, and then you have to click on the raised hand again to take your hand down.
Yeah.
If you don't click on it again, it'll just stay up there.
So you don't see that. What I have the participant window open, but you can't see it, right?
I can share it.
Okay. Okay, let me unshare first. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Are you able to see that?
Yep.
So when you click on the participants, so what I did was I just went to the participants list and it came up with this, and then you just click on
raise hand.
Raise hand. In some situations we were voting, in other meetings we yes, no, whatever. But
fact, leave that up. We'll talk about the yes, no right now.
Okay.
But yeah, the raised hand is certainly a feature that we'll look at, and we will have the Sergeant at Arms monitoring that if that's something that you want to have in your presentation. You could also ask a yes or no question. I like open-ended questions personally, but a yes, no question, if there's specific thing that helps you understand their gain of knowledge, you can certainly ask a yes, no question and then tell participants to go in there. And then as Andrea just showed, have them click either yes or no, and it'll tally up the votes so that the presenter then can see, how everybody voted. So if there was a reason that you wanted to have that in your
So one
session.
question we typically ask
Yeah.
is, have you served as a president before? Or is it the first time, right? If you have served
Sure.
as a president before, raise your
Yeah.
hand. Or, yeah.
Yep.
A great
Or say yes.
question. Yeah. In fact, if you won't probably be able to see who they are. Let me see what happens here. I'm gonna unshare your screen. If
That's
all right,
fine.
Andrea. Okay.
That's
thank you.
fine.
Go back.
If you're not the presenter, you can pin that participants window off to the right full length so you can see more names on it.
Right. Yeah, I'm trying to close my chat. There we go. Okay. So yeah, I can see who raised their hand. So for example, Mary Ann, Andrea, Abraham, Jeff, Ed, Bala all raised their hands. And as that individual who is monitoring, your Sergeant at Arms identifies those people, they can bring them into the meeting and have them ask a question or whatever it is. But yeah, with the yes or no feature, right now, how many of you have been in a training session before? I could ask that question, and you could now vote yes or no, and let us know how many people have been in a training session before. And the tally's coming up. I'm seeing 10, 11, 12. One person has not been in a training session before. So a very easy feature for you to use if you want to get some quick information. Thank you, Bala, for that comment about have you been a club president before. It's a great example of an opportunity to use it. It gives you some understanding of your audience, which is not a bad thing. All right, let me back up here. I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay.
Dick, Chris has joined us. You want to ask him about that, sharing your Zoom screen?
Well, that's fine. Yeah, we'll ask him. Yeah, we'll ask him in a minute about the chat. Let's see. We'll get into this. Yes, no, we talked about that. So that's another opportunity to learn something about your participants. There's also what we call the polls. Now, this one is going to take a little bit of work in the sense that in Zoom, and I don't know, I probably won't be able to share my screen to show that, but maybe, Chris, are you on? You're on? As co-host, you might be able to show it better. Is Chris Boyk there?
He's on mute, Dick.
Okay. Hang on a second. He's probably, maybe he's not actually there at his desk. He's probably logged in, but not at his desk. Okay. Well, let's carry on then. Sorry. All right. Try this again here. All right. So polls. There is a feature in Zoom that allows us to do polls, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to share my screen to show that or not. Can you see my screen at all?
I see you.
Yeah, okay.
Not sharing yet.
Yeah. Try this again.
Yeah, even if you share your desktop, the whole thing, I think you still cannot share your Zoom sessions,
Can't
Zoom windows.
Can't share Zoom. Chris was able to figure it out before, but I don't know. I'm not a.
But he uses multiple computers. You know, he has a Mac,
Yeah.
he has a Windows, he has
Yeah.
different sessions going on.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's true. I don't have that luxury.
Good.
But anyway, there is a poll, and I had actually set up a poll before the meeting in this session, and I don't even see it there. So I don't. Maybe that's not something you want to use. My apologies. I tried setting one up ahead of time. You are logged in from another device. Your polling session is inactive. This is
I
the
think you
only
should
device
see
I
where it
logged
was
into.
saved, because it's usually saved. If you say save,
Yeah, I
down
did.
it's in your downloads, and then
Yeah.
your sergeant at arms could load it up into the chat, and then people can respond to the poll there.
Well, the poll actually is a little bit different. It actually, you instigate it from within Zoom, and then the questions go out, and then people answer the questions, and it comes back. But the poll, for some reason, I'm not recognized that I'm in the right session, so I must have saved it somewhere else, and my apologies. The goal is that you can ask a question and have either individual answers that they could check or multiple answers they could check. So for example, if you wanted to better understand your audience, maybe you could ask them, what flavor ice cream do you like? And you could maybe choose vanilla, strawberry, chocolate, or Rocky Road, or I hate ice cream. Maybe that might be a choice. And people could click on that and then give you responses. And from that, you could gauge whether or not you want to talk about ice cream anymore, so whatever. I'm just kind of a dumb example, but there's ways that you can poll your audience about what they know. And maybe even toward the end of your session, it might be an opportunity to poll them about what's the first thing you're going to do when you get through with this session. And if you've talked about that during your training, and let's just say for the club president was like what Bonnie was talking about, your club president wants to be able to have the club officer meeting and get out there and start working on the club success plan. And if the answers that come back all say, well, we're going to go out and have a party, or we're going to focus on getting new members, maybe your message wasn't clear to them what you were saying that would be the best thing that they could do. So the poll might be a way for you to gauge how they're doing, how they're responding, how they are understanding what your message is. That might be an opportunity to do that. Let me go back to. Any questions on that? Sorry, I can't demonstrate it. I wish Chris were.
PC has a question.
I'm sorry. CC, go ahead. May need to unmute.
Sorry, now I'm unmuted.
Yep, okay.
Question related to polls. Usually we have an evaluation form at the end of our training sessions. Is there any way to do that from Zoom?
We can certainly put in an evaluation form in the chat, and people can download it, but then they'd have to send it somewhere, which is not a problem. But that's okay.
If I might interrupt, that's already been taken care of. Everybody will need to fill out and send back a Google form, which will be handed out by the sergeant at arms at the end of the session. And in order to get credit for having attended your officer training session, you will have to fill that out and send it back within the next day or two, or by the end of that week, in order to get credit for attending training. So it's evaluation and feedback all in one.
It's going to have the evaluation in that form?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I did not realize that. Okay, and maybe I must have missed that when we talked about it. Thank you. Thanks.
And Dick, I'm here now.
Hi, Chris. Yeah.
Happy Sunday.
Chris, I was trying to show people the poll feature in Zoom, and when I did, it showed up there was nothing there, and I had created a poll yesterday, and I don't know where it went to. I don't know if you see it out there or not, but I had created a poll, and it's not there right now. So
you have to launch the poll.
Yeah, I know. Where do you launch it? In poll.
In launch poll. So in Zoom, you click on polling.
Yep.
And then click launch poll.
There's nothing there. All I get's a white screen that says you're logged into another device.
There you go.
I launched the poll.
I know, yeah. That's what I figured you'd probably be able to, because I don't have that. For some reason, it's not on mine.
So no, it's not in the website. It's in Zoom, the Zoom client itself. You have to click on polling and then launch poll, or drag up. That's what actually was going on.
Okay.
I blame evil Chris.
Okay,
So-
did everyone respond to the poll? I did.
I've got 5 out of 21 votes so far.
This is the poll about ice cream?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And Chris, if anybody says they don't like it, you're welcome to kick them off the meeting.
That's
Yeah.
me.
There is a second poll there, which is
Oh,
probably a little more pertinent.
Ugh, I tell you.
So right now
Anyway,
we
okay.
have strawberry and vanilla winning. Any flavor is in second place. Chocolate is coming up coming in fourth place, and I hate ice cream is first place. It only has 2 votes, including me.
Okay.
So
All right. Thanks,
we're
Chris.
going to. What happens when you're a vegan? Okay, you have to like sorbet or something like that. Okay.
They have non-dairy.
I'm going to end the poll now. So another thing that you can do with this, because there are multiple polls here, and yes, they are in a drop-down list in the poll section, what I can do now is share the results with the audience, and you can see that now you can see what everyone's results are. Whoever the host is of the meeting for the poll is not going to be able to vote.
Or see the poll. I can't see the results. That's interesting.
Is anyone else able to see the results right now?
I can see what you got on the screen, yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And we forgot, so vanilla won.
But
Amen.
Chris, so why wouldn't the host be not be able to see that? That's important that host see it, right?
Yeah, why can't I see it?
So why can't the host raise their hand?
Yeah, I know that. We can't. It's
Why-
it's like trying to call myself on the phone.
Yeah, but the
All right,
host
let's
will be
kick
able
off.
to poll.
But
So
you'd think
so
it-
this is what I'd like you to do, Dick. I've gone
Yeah.
out of the polling section. Click on polling. You click on polling this time.
Hang on a minute. I got to get out of where I'm at.
Polling. I'll stop.
I'm totally lost now. No, I'm lost. Hang on a second. Get back into.
All the things I've lost my mind, I miss the most.
Yeah. There we go. All right. Now, see, the only thing I have on mine is polls. You say I have to get to the client. I'll be honest with you, you've gone
You're in the
beyond my
meeting.
knowledge base. So,
Oh
pardon me?
no, in the meeting, in the Zoom client, in Zoom itself.
Yeah, I see polls at the bottom.
Yep, click that.
I click it, and I get a blank screen. I don't have any. Before there was a little up arrow next to it, and I could click on it, and it would select the poll. I can't do that. So there's
Okay.
something. You and I are going to have to work that out. If that's an issue, I don't know why I can't see it. I should be able to as the host. In fact, you know what? Let me do this.
So I've just launched the other one, which is which officer role are you for
What if
2020?
multiple? Some of us are multiple.
I know.
Okay.
Unfortunately, this one was set up to be only one thing. You
Gotcha.
can set up a poll to be multiple choice or to be single selection or
Okay.
just let-
Let's not get too carried away with this. If there's an issue that we need to resolve regarding the host, I'm not sure why it disappeared on me, but it doesn't work. So we'll have to practice that. If it's not something that we'll be able to use, I'm glad we're doing it now. You know, we'll say that the poll's maybe not such a good idea. But we'll figure it out. We'll figure out what's going on with that. Okay. So I'm going to go back to presentation. I'm not sharing my screen now, or am I?
No, you're not.
Not. Let's go back to sharing my screen. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Boy. All right. Polls. Screen share. We already talked about screen sharing, and it may be a challenge if you try to have an attendee share their screen, but maybe not. Maybe they have a specific thing that they may have on their computer that they could share with you. Opportunity to do that if you want to within a Zoom session. There's also a whiteboard feature. That may or may not be something you want to use, but it's there. Chris, you want to go ahead and demonstrate that? I'll stop sharing. I'll let you do
I
it.
was going to say, you're going to need to stop sharing.
I did.
So for sharing the whiteboard, you're going to click on Share Screen at the bottom. And then in the list of items here, there is a whiteboard. Now, anyone can actually draw on this thing, not just you. So connect the dots, la, 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 and you can create your own little stick figures. Yep, someone's drawing.
And it's me.
Yes, not no. Now you can also click on the spotlight tool and select that to highlight something for showing everyone in the class something that you're looking to show. And if there's something that you want to erase, you can use the eraser tool and it deletes that particular option. And I see someone's found the stamps.
And there's Gary Vaughn, there you go. You can even show who's doing it.
Correct.
And I'm trying to remember where that is, Chris. You may remember, I don't recall. Oh, I think it's part of the, I don't know.
No, it's whoever's using the spotlight tool and the arrow function, that's where it actually will show up with that. Otherwise, this tool doesn't show you who actually drew what.
Yeah.
But that's fine. At least you have this as an option. So if you wanted to talk about how you've got your club meeting and then you're going to assign your chairs or draw your chairs in a specific order, you can draw out tables, you can draw out an organization chart, whatever you'd like to do. Or if you'd like to use the snippet tool or the grab it tool and you want to show a picture into the tool here, you can just copy and paste directly in here and that will do that as well.
You draw, I can't draw.
Me either.
Yeah.
You should have a tool, a toolbar that says select, text, draw, stamp.
Nope.
I don't have one either.
Yeah, I don't have one either.
Chris, remember when I had trouble doing the background business in Zoom and you said my computer was too old? Could that be a problem?
At the top where it says you are viewing Chris Boyk's screen, next to view options, hit the down arrow.
Yeah.
And click on annotate, and that'll bring up your menu for drawing and putting a stamp and adding text.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nice.
Let the fourth graders in you come out, or the 4-year-old.
All right. Now, thank you, Chris, for doing that. One of the things that, if you hadn't noticed what happened there, let me go back to my presentation, and I need to share my screen again. One of the things, if you hadn't noticed it, is exactly what I want to talk about. And that is, anytime we have like a question or a poll or exercises, or when you are out there doing something on a whiteboard, there may be dead time. So watch out for that. Be careful, be mindful that sometimes all best laid plans like mine don't work out the way they should. And if you start having a lot of dead time, there'll be people who go back to their phones. They might put themselves, out in some other place where you don't want them to be. So be mindful that when you are doing this, make sure that you're still engaging the people. This was a great example where I made a mistake, if you want to call it that, and we got off in another direction that really wasn't critical at what we wanted to do. But it did, I think, give a good example of being mindful of dead time. Okay, so let's talk about preparing. One of the things, if you have not done it yet, make sure that you are upgraded to Zoom 5.0. The reason being that there's some features that are, if you haven't got it up to graded, that it may not work very well for you. And how do you know what version you have? If you are, you probably can't see my screen because it's a Zoom session, but up in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see a small meeting information icon. It's an I. Oops, sorry, excuse me, next one over. Meeting encryption icon. And if you click on it, it's a little check mark with a shield behind it. If you click on it, you'll see the version of Zoom that you have. Mine is 5.0.4. I don't know if you can see that on my screen or not. You probably can't because that's part of the Zoom session.
You're no longer sharing either, Dick.
Yeah, well, that would probably help if I was sharing my screen. Thank you. But I don't know if you'll be able to see it anyway. Let me get back. All right. Now I'm lost.
Dick, it showed the shield briefly that it went out.
It doesn't stay on. It won't stay on.
Yeah.
Hang on a minute. Yeah, I'm totally in another world here. Hang on.
Dick, would you like me to share my screen? I can.
Yeah, I don't know if you can show it or not, but go ahead and try it, Chris, because I can't.
I shall
I'm
usurp
sure.
you.
You get it. Okay. Yep, no problem.
So right here, you can click on this little shield icon, and that will tell you the version of Zoom that you're on. This is the latest version that's available right now is 5.05. More than likely by the TLIs, there may be another version that's available. But you can always go to within your main Zoom client, click on the name here and then check for updates, and it will tell you if you're on the latest version or if there's an update that's available. Once again, go back over to the main Zoom client, check for updates, and that'll tell you if there's an update that's available or not. Don't do that while in a session.
No, check it out. This is something you do before you even, like today after we're done talking, check to make sure you have the latest. Thank you, Chris.
Hey, Chris, real quick, how did you share the Zoom session itself? Was it just a window that you chose within share screen?
All right.
Thank you.
He probably went to a different.
So first, you have to be logged into your Zoom client on your local computer, whether it's Mac or Windows. You have to be logged in. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
From there, you can go to, well, even just clicking on this little icon here, the little checkbox, the shield icon, and share screen. Show Zoom windows during screen share has to be checked. But once again, that only comes up if your local Zoom client is logged in as an account.
Sure.
Otherwise, it doesn't show up with that at all.
Okay.
Can't we just do the share screen?
So if somebody
is the URL to get into here and we aren't logged in, we won't be able to see it.
Correct.
Chris, for people like myself who are pretty stupid in terms of, I don't know, I don't have a clue whether I'm logged in as a client or not. I'm obviously not because I don't see it.
So if you don't see this kind of screen where you've got upcoming meetings, chat, or something like this, if you're being prompted with a login credential to log into Zoom, you're not logged in.
I logged into the D54 account.
Not the website.
Yeah,
I don't know. See, I don't know the difference, Chris. That's my point. That's I don't know what that means.
Can't you just can't you just click on the share screen at the bottom of your
No.
It does not work.
By default, it does not do that. So if you click on your local Zoom window, I'm assuming most of you are on Windows. Unfortunately, I'm on my Mac right now. I can join from my Windows computer in a minute here. In fact, that's what I'm doing. What you will see is that you will be prompted for a login like this. You're going to either have to log in with your free account or log in with another type of account to log in to your Zoom client.
Yeah. Okay, Chris, I apologize. I'm going to have to
You got to
stop
move
this
on.
because I hear you, but I don't. It doesn't help me. I need to understand that whole Zoom client thing, and maybe we need a separate education, at least for me, because I'm not there. I apologize. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on because we got a little bit more ground to cover yet. Sorry, Chris. All right, so let me get back here. Okay, so upgrading to Zoom 5.0 would be a very important thing to do. Make sure you have done it. If you haven't, do so. Checking your camera, lighting, in-frame and eye level. I know that some of you are logged in right now and you may be, let me see if I can show it. If you've got your laptop and you're like this and it's on your laptop and you're moving around, that's probably going to be kind of distracting for people. Plus if you're looking into the camera, they're probably looking up into your nose. So if you can, at least try to get it somewhat close to eye level for your camera. My apologies in making you seasick if I move my camera around. So trying to make sure your lighting is good too. If your lighting is, like I know for my camera, I got a lousy camera, and when I get into evenings and the light's artificial, when I turn on lights in the room, everything starts to turn red. It looks like I've got terribly high blood pressure or something going on. I got to try to figure out what my lighting issues are, but that's something I need to work on. So whatever your lighting might be at the time we're going to be doing the training session, which is going to be in the morning time frame, the training session, check your lighting. Make sure that that's kind of what it'll be like when you're doing it. Check your sound. Make sure that when you log into your account for Zoom, that your sound is working properly and your microphone is working properly. My microphone on my computer is terrible, and that's why I have to wear the headphones. My microphone on my computer, many have complained that it's garbled and scratchy and all that kind of good stuff. It would be a good idea to check that out. You can do that if you just click on the icon for sound or for your audio in Zoom, you can actually do a test to see if your microphone's working and if your sound level is working properly for hearing people. So that I think are two things you should probably check, your video and your sound. Watch out for backgrounds that might be distracting. If you've got kids running around the background or like for me, I've got a ceiling fan. If that was running and you saw that flickering, that might be really distraction for you. So keep that in mind when you're looking at how people will be looking at you during the training session. Obviously, you want to prepare your presentation. I assume most of you are probably going to be using the TI files. This particular session that I'm doing is actually a very modified from speaker to trainer session. I obviously had to modify it a lot to add in Zoom information, but I took some of the things that were speaker to trainer. For you, go ahead and change your session to speak to what you think that the audience really needs to have in their toolkit when they leave and what they will do when they leave. If you pull down the PowerPoint presentations from the TI website, they're in a PPS file. So the way to open it up and make modifications is to open up PowerPoint first and then go to the file that you saved and open it up, and then you can make revisions to it. If you just try to open it up directly from the file, it will not, it'll open up as a PPS file and you won't be able to make any changes to it. Identify when and how the interaction, we talked about that, and we've got some scenarios that might be useful for you in your club leadership handbook, things that you could do to engage the audience. And I would highly recommend that we do not use a virtual background. And the reason for that, unless you have a green screen, generally speaking, your virtual background is going to make things look kind of shaky. So, for example, if I were to change my virtual background, try to do it. Yeah. And change it to something like the Golden Gate Bridge. When I move my hands, things get really wonky looking. I don't have a green backdrop, so it really, I'd highly recommend that we don't use the. Am I still sharing?
Kristen has a green screen.
Sorry?
I said Kristen has a green screen.
Kristen, I don't see Kristen on here.
You're not sharing, Dick. Kristen Boyd's wall is green, partially.
Yeah, I don't even see her on my. Oh, there. Oh, okay. Yeah, I see. I'm sorry. Yeah. Let me get back to sharing then. Hang on a second.
Since shirt is green too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go, Kristen.
So she'd be a floating head. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so avoid the virtual background unless you got a green screen. Okay, preparing. Make sure that your video works. And, obviously I'm still not very well versed in how to conduct a good Zoom session. And my apologies if it doesn't work for you, but that's why we got the Sergeant at Arms, hopefully, to help you so you can focus on doing your presentation and engaging the audience. Well, you want to limit your slide, and this is kind of an obvious thing, info to one idea, a theme. If there are poll questions, if we just figure out exactly how this poll thing could work and you want to use a poll to ask questions like what we talked about, what role are you, or have you been in this role before, or how, send these to Chris and Dick, and we will make sure we figure out a way to get it into your session, because it's going to be, as we said, there are 7 separate Zoom sessions for all the 7 separate rooms, and each of those have a Zoom account associated with them, and we need to make sure we build those into each of those accounts for your session. So send those to Chris and I, actually more Chris than me, obviously. He knows what to do with them. Okay, if you are using PowerPoint, I would ask that you please send the file to Chris and Dick. Why do you suppose I'm asking that? Anybody want to volunteer why they think that we might want to have a copy of your PowerPoint file? Anyone? Take a guess.
Make sure backup, maybe?
Sorry, Tom?
As a backup if something happens to ours?
Yeah, great. That's exactly right. If something happens and for some reason Tom Willison's PowerPoint file, he can't show it, or things get crazy or whatever, at least we have a backup where we can put that PowerPoint file back up on screen.
And also if Tom loses his internet connection, right? Completely.
Yeah, if he loses internet connection, we can at least change that. Exactly. Okay, we will have a practice session. Now, I need feedback from Wendy and Chris. I know at one point we said that we wanted the trainers to show up at 10 o'clock, and at 9 o'clock we would have the Sergeant at Arms, and then we would have the Sergeant at Arms and trainers at 10 o'clock. Do we still want to do that, or do we want to have everybody show up at 9 o'clock? Wendy or Chris?
Chris, this is your session, so
I'd rather have. So I'd like to talk with all the potential Sergeant at Arms at 9 a.m. before we have a conversation with you. We're going to be provisioning the new Zoom accounts at that time, and we're going to be talking with your Sergeant at Arms. If you'd like to go through a quick rundown of the presentations and the technology, that would be your opportunity to be able to work with your Sergeant at Arms / Zoom masters to ensure that everything works at least as of then, and find any opportunities for improvement that may exist with the presentation or with how you plan on delivering, and discussing at that point in time.
So Chris, are you saying that at 10 o'clock, really the trainers should show up? We'll be sending out a Zoom link, but
we'll send out a meeting notification, yes, to everyone.
Okay. All right. So trainers plan on June 20th at 10 o'clock with an opportunity to work with the Sergeant at Arms for your sessions.
And if there's someone that you really enjoy working with who understands Zoom, Gary, congratulations on possibly being nominated for your non-training class. If there's someone that you know who knows Zoom very well, please have them direct over to me as we're trying to find the Sergeant at Arms and come up with the requirements for all that. Thank you.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, showtime. Arrive early, arrive early, arrive early for your session. Now, here's the challenge. We have a general session that'll start at 8:30. Is that right, Wendy? Yes, 8:30. And then at 9 o'clock will be when your training sessions, actually, excuse me, at 9 o'clock will be the general session where the quality section will occur. And then at 10 o'clock will be each of your individual training sessions, assuming that you have one at 10 o'clock. Maybe yours is only later on, but the key, that means that you may have to leave the general session a few minutes early. We have about 5 minutes in between the end of the general session and the beginning of the, do I have the numbers right, Wendy? 5 minutes?
That was, yeah, that was what we discussed.
So you may have to leave that general session a little bit early in order to get into your Zoom session and be set up and ready to go. So keep that in mind. And we'll talk more about that when we get into the session on the 20th. But that's kind of realize that may be the case. Make sure that all can see your visuals. Hopefully you are, whatever visuals you have will be online and not trying to use a placard or any kind of a maybe flip chart behind you. So that should not be a big issue, but certainly something to think about. And then obviously we talked about chat monitoring and using the Sergeant at Arms, and in the Sergeant at Arms session that we'll have on the 20th, we'll have an opportunity for each of you to talk with your Sergeant at Arms and make sure you agree on how you're going to handle either chat monitoring or things like raising your hand, who's going to monitor that. And also we'll need to talk about timing signals. For the Sergeant at Arms will be the person that'll take care of the timing. So keep that in mind when we get into that session, how are the signals going to happen. For example, if you're doing a 55-minute session, do you want a green light at, I'm going to take a number, at 40 minutes, and then another one at 45, and another one at 50, so that you have 5 minutes left to maybe do any last minute cleanup or whatever it is. However you want your signals, arrange for that with your Sergeant at Arms during that session that we have on the 20th. Look in the camera. Already today, I know I was not constantly looking at the camera. That's a challenge. I think any of us who are doing a Zoom session, being able to look in the camera. In fact, I know that oftentimes when I have my glasses on and the light's coming in from outside, there's a terrible reflection and you probably can't even see my eyes. So, but keep in mind that the camera is where people are going to be seeing you. So as much as possible, try to look in the camera. And then when you start your session, make sure that you tell the attendees that you are looking for participation, and tell them that we will be monitoring the chat as a minimum. We will be doing that. We'll also mention that at the very beginning when Wendy does her general session at the beginning of the TLI, but we'll also mention it at the very beginning of each of the training sessions. Ask them to mute their video and audio to avoid distractions. And the main thing though, of course, when you are doing this, try to have fun. This isn't going to be perfect. This is the first time most of us will be doing a live Zoom training session. We will be learning as well as they will be learning. So but it's okay. If things don't quite go exactly the way we planned it, life goes on. This is Toastmasters. We can make mistakes. It's okay. Carry on. The goal here, though, is that when they leave the session, they know what they need to do in terms of their roles of the session. So planning your session, making sure you identify your objectives, what you want them to know and learn, and any pre-work. And we'll talk a little bit in a few minutes here about how we want to get the word out about what pre-work that the attendees may want to do. You're a trainer, not just a speaker. It's an opportunity to engage your audience, much like what we've done here in this session today. Engaging the participants, how they do it, discussion or chat or raising their hand or however you want to do it, poll questions. Ensure you are ready for Zoom. I thought I was ready for Zoom. Guess what? I learned a few things even today. We probably are always going to keep learning new things about Zoom. Double check your audio and video, certainly before you go into. By the way, I can make this PowerPoint available if you want to kind of review some notes that I've got on here. I can make that available for you as well. And then to practice and be flexible, because things will come up, things will happen. Be ready for those and give yourself an opportunity to recover from issues that may come up along the way. And these are just some of the resources that I would highly recommend for anybody who's going to be doing the training, as well as anybody who's going to be receiving or attending the training. The Distinguished Club Program and Club Success Plan. I mean, that's kind of the Bible for the leaders. This is something that they really should be focusing on very early on in their training program, but also when they leave the training program. And then the Club Leadership Handbook we talked about. And then finally, the moments of truth, which really, if you think about all three of these things, they integrate together. And these three pieces of literature, I think, are essential for any club officer to read and understand. So I kind of throw it out to you folks. And do you think, let's ask the question. I'll ask a yes or no question. How's that? We can get some responses from you. Do you think we should ask all of the attendees to take a look at the Club Leadership Handbook before they come into the training session? So answer up, if you would, with a yes or no question. I'm going to stop sharing now. And you do that by clicking on your participants icon and then voting yes or no. And right now we've got, so far I see 19. We got a strong majority. We're up to 20 of people who feel like the Club Leadership Handbook would be a really good thing for them to. So maybe what we need to do is, Chris and whoever, I forgot who our registration chair, it's Deborah, how we get that information out there to them. And maybe when we send out the link for the Zoom, we tell them, look, take a look at the Club Leadership Handbook before you come. Would that be a good way to do it? Chris, I'm asking, really.
We already have a link to it on our district website's homepage. As part of the club resource kit that's there. But yes, we can definitely make sure that we get that as part of one of the communications that go out through Ron, and ensure that we've got that out there. Bala, do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. In fact, anyone who registers for the TLI will get a document that will include the link for the different sessions. Right, that's what we agreed on, right? We'll have all the different classes.
Yeah,
this is for the club officer handbook.
This is a club.
Right.
Club
So in the
handbook.
document we can include pre-work or resources links at the top of it too. I mean.
Yeah, I don't want. What I'm saying, I think what we want to be is maybe tell them your responsibility as an attendee is, and then give them the link. Don't just, here's a link that you'd be, if you're interested. This should be, they should feel responsible to do this. This is the
pre-work. Yeah, we can even send you're right.
Let's make it let's shove it down their throat. No, that's not what I mean, but make it more proactive from our standpoint.
I think it also might be a good idea to include ask them to review the club success plan.
Great. Sure. Why not? Especially, maybe not so much for those who are not officers, but certainly for anybody who's going to be a club officer. Yes.
Yes, I was thinking specifically club officer. Yes.
Yeah. Great. Hey, let's make both of those. At least if they haven't maybe read them cover to cover, at least get them to look at them and review them and get the basics of where they need to be. Yeah.
And that's one thing that TI has updated for the next year for pathways only is the DCP.
Exactly. Yes. In that Distinguished Club Program, Club Success Plan, that has been updated for pathways only for next year, which, and by the way, it was a question that I had, because up until I saw that, I didn't know, but the DTM level is like it has been for the traditional program in, I think it's goals 5 and 6, is actually one of those goals that you can complete. You complete a DTM and you can, for your club, get goal 5 or 6, depending on which one it is.
5 and 6 are both different now. Instead of being one where you get a level 4 and one, or 5, level 4 and one where you get a level 5, they're both now to get a level 4, 5, or DTM, and
Right.
then more level 4, 5, or DTM.
Right. It is different. So keep that in mind. If for those of you who are doing anything with respect to the Distinguished Club program in your training, that you do in fact have the latest and greatest. You don't. By the way, if you pull up the training file, and I haven't studied them all, but if you pull up the training file, say for the club president, and in there if there's some Distinguished Club program information, it won't be up to date. So keep that in mind. That's why I think in your presentations, if you're using any PowerPoint that comes off the website, off the TI website, it might not have the latest and greatest in terms of what that Distinguished Club program looks like. And if you're going to talk about it, make sure that you have the right information. You can get that from the Club Success Plan Distinguished Club Program manual. It's a great place to pull that out from. Wow, we covered a lot of ground. Thank you for being patient with me particularly. I didn't expect I was going to be stumbling as much as I did, but that's the way it works sometimes. Any last minute questions? We have about 4 or 5 minutes left.
Yes.
Yes, Will, please.
How and when do we get across our qualifications? What it is that qualifies us to be leading the training session?
Yeah, boy, that's a great point. I wish I had done that at the beginning of this one. You guys might have. Yeah. What we'll be doing is, each of you as presenters, as trainers, you should put together kind of a short bio that the Sergeant at Arms, just like we would do in a live session, a short bio that the Sergeant at Arms can read and tell the attendees why they want to listen to you. I think that's effectively what you're saying, right, Will?
Last question, then I'm done. In previous sessions where I've done training for a Sergeant at Arms, I've developed a pass out that I've given everyone. How would I be able to get the pass out to them when I'm doing a Zoom training session?
I am not going to answer it. I'll leave it to the folks who have a better handle on that than I do. Chris, looks like you.
So one of the things that we're going to enable for these sessions is the ability to be able to transfer files in the actual session itself. So you will actually be able to post a file, copy a file into the chat, and it will be made available for everyone who is in the chat at that time. Zoom does not have the capability of posting a file and making it available for future people who show up. So when you put something into the chat for everyone's public consumption, it will just be for the folks who are in the session then. You may want to wait a few minutes into the session to actually post anything as a result, or share it with your Sergeant at Arms to be able to post it afterwards. And
or another option would be, if you have a Word document, I don't know what kind of document you have, send it to your SAA. We can even email to all the attendants if we know them, right? Those who are registered before the class. So they have the document with them. I mean, of course.
Just a quick FYI, if you're
you cannot give printed copies, but you can give the document.
If you're sharing something in chat, a PDF works a whole lot better than Word, because Word takes forever to upload. Yeah. So you can convert a Word document to a PDF and use that.
So whatever document you have, will let the SA know, or we can all help convert that into PDF and then email it, or even share it during the session, right? You can even share that if it is something you want to share.
I think I like the idea of giving it to my Sergeant at Arms ahead of time.
That would make some consistency. And and that way they're giving it to them ahead of time. They can put it out there during the session or after, maybe say midway through the session or whatever. But at least that way they can, but we're still relying on people to download it. And I know I've been in sessions before where people put it out there and then all of a sudden the Zoom session was done and, oh, darn, I forgot to download it. And I never did get to download it. So that's one of the downsides of it. But anyway, it's better than not having an opportunity to give it to people. Yeah.
It's no different than if someone were to throw out the handout at the end of the session in a garbage can afterwards, though.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that does happen.
Trees.
Yeah.
Say, Chris, wonder if we could set something up in the district website and just post all of them in there and let people download from there.
That's not a bad idea either.
Like a TLI training resource.
Correct.
Yeah.
One less confusing thing for a trainer or sergeant at arms to do. For
Correct.
Sure. Yeah.
But plus, I'm not sure, like with my machine, if it'll work with all of the bells and whistles, because I don't have some of the bells and whistles because of the type of machine I have.
Understood.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. On the training page, we have right now links to the registration. Maybe below that, we can provide some resources, pre-work.
Yeah. Well, yeah, pre-work, but also even post-work, if there are handouts like what, Will, I don't know, for example, if you would even want your handout in their hands during the session, or if you wanted to wait until after too. That's the other thing. Some people may not want it.
Well, the problem with handing it out at the beginning of the session is that they're fumbling it with it and reading it during the session and not absorbing what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So the answer is at the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or way before, but not at the beginning of the session.
Yeah.
So that's the beautiful part about the website. We can update it and upload it there. So.
Yep.
But that's also maybe if you put it on the website and in the email going out to people saying, here, you're going to this class or whatever class you're going to, is just to give them one link to that page, and then they can pick and choose what resources they need to print.
Correct.
Sorry if that's what you already just said.
Okay.
Yep, not a problem.
So it sounds like the website is probably the solution to that then.
Yep.
Plan on that. I think we're about there. Thank you so much. Unless somebody else has.
This is John. I got one.
Yes, John. Yes, go ahead.
I assume as presenters that we do not have or will not have any responsibility for knowing who's at our session and attending the session. Someone else is going to do that. Is that correct?
That's going to be the sergeant at arms, and yes, they're going to have, each attendee is going to have to fill out their Google form stating that they were in the class, and also fill out the feedback form. We will send it to the presenters in order for them to get credit.
Yeah. But as presenters, you names, John. In fact, we want everyone to make sure that they put their correct name as a display name in Zoom. When they join Zoom, they can you can change your name, right? Do you want to ask them to put their club name also, the name and club name or something, some other details?
That would help for cross verification. Thank you very much.
How do you put 3 club names after my name and still see it on the screen?
Yeah, yeah, that's too long. Yep.
Numbers, even though that's not what Marianne's going to be able to use. So.
I have to go against the district directory. So what's in the district directory would be preferred. Thank you much.
Yeah.
Which is the name of the club. So. I have to go.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. And I think we're pretty well done unless somebody had another comment or question. I thank you all for showing up and helping out and giving me feedback and participating. That's really the key. Remember that when for your session, as you're planning it, trying to get that participation from your attendees is really important. Thank you for being here, and enjoy the rest of what's left of your Sunday. Take care.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Dick.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Dick.
Bye-bye.